What's up, guys? My name is Fari, and I build systems that remove bottlenecks within businesses. And I've been documenting my builds for 122 days now, going up to 365. And in today's video, we're going to be going through why technology doesn't improve itself and how I am building systems that ultimately do. We're going to be going through the misconception of why people think that technology automatically just increases, and also the real bottleneck behind it, as well as my approach, how I'm actively solving for this, and how I'm thinking about this as well, and also what this unlocks, what this ultimately unlocks as a result of my specific approach, and why I am documenting this daily. So this is going to be a super fun one. It's one that I've had a super keen interest, and something that I've wanted to just share my thoughts on, and just how I'm actively thinking about it. But anyways, enough of that. So the misconception is that people assume that technology automatically gets better, and this is a concept that I read and learned about from Elon Musk when he was speaking about people automatically think that things are just going to get better, but not realizing that technology as a byproduct of our human conscious, not our human knowledge that we've gathered through time and condensed into this mode, that ultimately allows us to then produce the things that we're then able to do. So it ultimately makes me realize, at least, that understanding that technology is built by us and it's a man-made construct, it automatically means that we need to understand that it just doesn't get better. We look at AI and we look at all these different softwares and platforms, and we may think, I may also have thoughts in that specific time, that everything will just automatically increase. But that is not true. That is not true, because we as humans made these technologies, and we made all these things happen. And how do we constantly just innovate on that? Ultimately comes from understanding that it doesn't automatically just increase. Like, systems just don't automatically get better with time, and all the things that we see today just do not get better with time. It ultimately means that the truth is that without humans pushing, systems degrade, and entropy ultimately degrades as a result of this. You ultimately understand that if we want to push the boundaries and we want to make AI and all these different things possible into the future, we as people need to be able to push those boundaries forward so that we can build the future of tomorrow. Which got me thinking, businesses fall into this trap. They expect tools to automatically scale, but they don't. They automatically assume that, hey, the next tool is going to come out and it's going to solve all our problems. But that is not the case. Different problems are ultimately coming as there is an increase in complexity in terms of how we interact with the world, in my personal opinion. And I know that that is ultimately gonna increase with time. And how do we then cater for this, or how do we then set up means and strategies in place that automatically or that combat this, sorry. And also understanding that us as humans, we ultimately need to be able to push things forward if we want things to automatically get better. I'm saying automatically a lot today. I don't know why, but anyways. So yeah, so the real bottlenecks also comes as a result of understanding where the weak links are. It isn't in software, it's the lack of improving systems. For me, the way that I've always taken an approach of is, how am I going to build systems that are automatically, I said it again, that are ultimately increasing in terms of in iteration through time, that are constantly improving and also getting better, and understanding where businesses bleed, which automatically, I said it again, which means that we're looking at where the revenue leaks are hidden in the process, and also the manual decision making, which automatically means that this means that it's slow and error prone, and bottlenecks spotted too late. Basically, these are a product of what the bottlenecks are. So how do we then, understand what the tactical blind spot is? And this also means that we need to understand that nobody is designing a system that learns and adapts over time. At least from my experience, how do we then, take this approach of, building a system that learns and adapts through time, not necessarily in the form of, AI, what the buzzword is, but how do we build something that automatically, scales the level of output that our clients have as well, and that also builds the next generation of back-end systems, or systems that run in the back end for businesses and powers their growth. How do we build that in a way that automatically, or that also increases the amount of output that they can have as well? And this also means that, this means that my approach automatically comes from understanding that, this is a first, we need to think about things, in terms of mapping and flows as well. Basically mapping out the business flows from end to end, and understanding where the different, interactions are. Also the human interactions as well. How are humans interacting, with the machines, and how is that interaction scaling their level of output in a manner that we can also track and measure? Because if we understand the flows from end to end, as the first step, then we're then able to understand how we can then build from there. Because you can't just build blind and expect to understand how every single thing interacts with each other if you don't map out the flows and understand how those flows interact with each other. And that also means that, understanding the instruments with them, basically the data points that also point to them, the visibility, understanding what those data points are, what are the data points that ultimately serve as a function for what it is that we are building, and understanding that running background systems to detect patterns and anomalies. So this is also the approach that, I'm actively thinking about, in terms of, thinking about the different background systems that, need to be built in order to detect patterns and anomalies as well. Basically building a system that is able to prevent self-healing infrastructure. If you've watched any of my previous videos, that means that, we're just, understanding where the pattern recognition, are, where we can recognize patterns and also spot anomalies. And this system also needs to be self-healing in that sense, that it can, automatically just, detect and also prevent by itself. And also, is this, second ops brain, which is Killer Chaos OS, that I've mentioned in my previous videos. And also understanding that, this needs to be layered with predictive logic to surface bottlenecks before they even happen. Because, I think, and I personally believe that, with the increase in complexity in terms of how we interact, with the world around us, and the increase in data, as AI and all these different things are coming to the floor, we need to understand that, all these different things need to have means and measures and strategies as well, that also, allows us to predict how they're going to interact into the future with our specific business use case. And layering that, in terms of understanding where we need to specifically plug in AI, and not just throwing it everywhere, and not just, and not really understanding where the leverage of having it is, placed as well, is a means for us to also understand as well. And that means that we're thinking in terms of early warning signs for the system's health, so that we're also understanding that, hey, this specific system has this health, and this is, based on the previous historical data, this is how it's interacting today, and it's able to pick up from those patterns, and also, make decisions that, ultimately yield, the results that they're looking for into the future, but also with context. Because I think, like I said in the previous video, that context oftentimes gets overlooked, in my personal opinion. That, context is so key in terms of building out systems, because without context, you solely just are relying on, what you're building today, but without the prior context, even if it seems, super small or not, or meaningless, that context is also, super important as well, in terms of building the system that also, is able to predict into the future. Sorry, I'm trying to not say automatic, or I don't know why I've been saying that today so much, but anyways, so this is what it also, automatically, this is what it ultimately unlocks. And this means that the tactical outcomes come when systems are push themselves forward rather, and revenue leaks are identified in real time and are plugged fast, and predictive alerts, leadership can act before chaos. So this also means that we're just taking the approach of how can we predict, and allowing, the users or the business to also understand, hey, this specific facet of their business is leaking, and if they don't take an approach to solve it, then this XYZ result is automatically gonna cause a bottleneck within their business. And this is also gonna make them realize that we're creating value by making them see what the patterns are within their specific business with context as well. That means that allows them to then, be able to push their endeavors forward and get to their main goal by having these predictive alerts and understanding that, hey, if we want to make decisions, we have these data points, we have these patterns that, the system has been able to, generate and also predict. And this means that we're building operational intelligence where we're compounding advantage over time, and then this results in the business becoming self-correcting or self-healing instead of reactive. So it's not just constantly reacting in terms of, hey, this is going wrong, so now what do we do? It's rather taking an approach of, hey, this is going wrong, this is the patterns that we've then been able to spot, and this is how we're going to combat that without, no solely having an interaction hopefully one day, but also thinking about this in this specific modes. I know that we're going to push the, the mission forward as well. And this is why I'm documenting this each and every single day, because each daily build is just me practicing the philosophy that I'm building. My work is ultimately laying the foundations for a system that runs in the background, picks up patterns that humans miss, and also pushes technology forward instead of waiting for it to just happen, as well as not just talking theory, but architecting the next generation of business infrastructure. And I know that into the future, even if we don't, get to the, grand vision with that, we're also just, pushing the mission forward, because I think that is one of the most important things, to think about. And that's the takeaway that I want you to have from this specific video, apart from me saying automatically like 100 times in this video. The main thing is also just understanding that technology does not improve over time just because we say so. It needs people, us as humans that built it. That is a culmination of our human intelligence and, the things that we've been able to build into, this technology that, serves us and allows us to do these certain things that we're doing. But that doesn't mean that it's gonna, just magically increase, in terms of, what's gonna happen into the future. AI is not just gonna suddenly just pop up and be this superhuman intelligence thing that, everyone speaks about. And, systems aren't gonna be, just this self-correcting, self-healing infrastructure that, automatically understands, what the business context is, and is able to correct that, and as well as is self-healing. And that means we need to be able to understand this and also make sure that we're building this today so that we're pushing the mission forward. It's the mission over ego. That is the one thing that I'm learning each and every single day, to keep the mission forward, because I know that we're going to be laying somewhat of a blueprint, even if we don't realize it today, of how systems should be built. And this is a concept that I want to, also just take, in terms of human progress just does not happen, automatically. It needs people to be at the frontier and push it forward. And that's what we want to do in terms of building out systems. We want to be the people that also, just push the mission forward in terms of building the next generation of backend systems, or systems that run in the backend, and also just creates value. And I know that we're going to get somewhere close to that grand vision, and even just, making a 1% contribution, that would be super worth it, because then we'll be inspiring millions of people and having this huge amount of impact that also gets us to the grand vision for what it is that we're doing. Even if we just lay the blueprint, I think that is a mission worth, striving towards, and just focusing solely just on getting there, and how can we constantly improve, you know, ourselves and the way that we're thinking, and not saying automatically 100 times in the video. Funny, but yeah, and just thinking tactically about how we can, you know, push this forward, and making sure that each and every single day that we're showing up like I'm doing with these videos, because I'm saying to myself, if I'm gonna say that I'm gonna build this, you know, next generation of backend systems, and, you know, build these infrastructures and all these different things, then I need to show up each and every single day, and this is my mode for doing it. This is my platform to document that, and also show that, you know, we're learning, we're failing, we're not making things perfect, to be honest. And that's why I'm going to keep it, you know, the automatically 100 times. You know, I just want it to be, you know, a log of documentation that shows the raw thinking in terms of how, you know, I'm thinking about it, and how the team is also thinking about it, and how we're thinking about scaling our level of impact for now and also into the future. So yeah, if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to check out my newsletter. Recently just rolled it out. It's the first link in the description. And also, if you want to connect with me, make sure to check out my X, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's also in the description. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.